All right, and we are back for episode 57 of
Wow.
Digital Divination. Yeah, it's since we hit 50, it's been going really slow. It's like I thought we should be at 75 already.
We hit 50 so fast, we expected 100, 200, 300 to go by in
Yeah.
a blink.
Yeah, so oh well, maybe it's just kind of the doldrums of summer too, approaching. Like spring term for me, like when I'm finishing up right before summer, it takes
Mhm.
so long to get there because you're just ready to be done with school. So,
Do, do you feel like the students feel your students feel the same, or your students are part of the reason it feels slow to you?
no, I know they feel the same, because I very often will have shorter classes and or just, "Oh, we'll do it remote," I got a video up, go watch that, and and they're all happy for that. It makes it speed quite a bit. In fact, I had to do that this week because I had to miss class yesterday for my bionic eyes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, how are you
Yeah.
recovering? I mean, you
I
look
the same, right?
you're that was about to come out. Are you looking good, John? But that's not
Uh
what you know what I mean.
Yeah, so I got the first one Monday, and then, I was surprised by dinner time, it was already pretty clear, but I had double vision because your eyes still waking up, after the cataract
Mhm.
surgery, so basically, just for our listeners here, I because of my transplant medications, I had early onset of cataracts, and I completely lost sight in one eye, and the other eye was getting bad, and, they went in and cleaned up my good eye, so I couldn't see anything for a while, but by dinner time, I could see stuff, and then yesterday, they did my bad eye, and it's like everything is looking really good now. So it's
Oh, great.
yeah,
Great.
they when I went in yesterday morning, they did a check the visual acuity of the eye they worked on, and it went from 20/50 with my glasses to 20/15 within 24 hours, which they said is really fast. Usually it takes a while to settle down. I said, I'm just good looking
Wow.
with
Because
eyes
the curvature of your eye reshapes, is that right? When you get it, because the cataract, getting rid of the cataract changes the curvature of the eye, but your eye has to readjust to that. Is that right?
I don't know. So what they do when they take out the cataract, there's this little lens that's at the top, and the cataract kind of gets in there, and they use a laser and just take it all out,
Hmm.
and then your existing lens is gone, so they put a new one. In my case, I've been wearing contacts or glasses for like 45 years, and they put
Hmm.
in a new prescription in both eyes, so now I don't have to have corrective lenses at all.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's the only good part of being half blind for 6 months. Now I get really good vision. Oh, what about you? Anything exciting happening?
Oh, we're going to France. I don't know. Did we mention that in the last?
I don't think we've told anybody about
We did.
this.
I am very excited about going to France. My father-in-law sings with a choir, and that choir is going to be performing on the beach at Normandy for the anniversary of D-Day. And the choir group has like a whole tour package that they did, and they reached out to him
Mhm.
and said, "Hey, if you've got family who wants to come along, the here's what we're doing for the tour, and here's the hotels we're staying in, and the sites we're seeing on such and such day." And so we've taken I'm taking my whole family on a trip to France to go along with. We're not going to follow around the tour group. We're going to be doing some. We're going to
Mhm.
Louvre the same day that they are. The
Yeah.
Eiffel Tower, I think we're doing the day after they are. We're going to be able to see them perform in Normandy. So it'll be good. My wife has been to France a couple of times,
Mhm.
and I've never been. So it's going to be my
Yeah.
first time to France.
I've
And my kid's first
never
time
been.
to Europe at all.
Yeah. Wow. That's exciting. Are they are they prepared to go, your kids?
No, my oldest is excited to be like shopping and buying clothes in Paris. The thing that
Uh,
I hit her with the solid dose of reality that really has her questioning whether or not she wants to go is
mhm.
that she's got this guy. They've been texting so far, or in Snapchatting. Anyway, but their record is they communicate every day, and they've communicated every day for the last something like 130 days or something like that. They've been friends for a long time, and
Yeah.
they're keeping track of every single day. And when I told her, "Oh, well, you don't get phone service and send texts when you're in Europe. It's on a whole different sort of system. It ends up being a lot more expensive. I
Who's
don't
your
really want to look
carrier?
into that. I want to be able to leave our phones kind of behind and be able
Yeah.
to be tours." She's like, "Wait, no, but then it's gonna break my streak, and now I don't even want to go." I'm like, "Well,
Oh,
you think
wow.
about it. I can understand that initial
Yeah,
reaction, but
yeah. Who's your cell phone carrier?
we're on Xfinity."
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, so I'm not I have T-Mobile, and, it works everywhere for text. Like, my kid's in Brazil texting me now,
Oh,
and
that's
it's
nice.
free. Yeah, and when we were in Europe, we just used our regular phone. I don't see Xfinity is kind of a weird animal because they're based around their own networks here
Right, but they
domestically. Oh,
they carry Comcast. I mean, I could look into this, but
yeah.
part of it is an incentive
Yeah, but
to
you don't want to.
not look into it, right? I don't want my kids on their screens all the
Oh,
time,
yeah,
and
no.
so
Well, for us, I liked having it just for getting around and finding stuff like that. That's the only thing for me, having one, being able to get
being able to
around.
look at it, be able to connect with other people in your group, right?
Yeah,
Text
yeah,
somebody. Oh, we're at this place for pastries. Where are you for pastries? I mean, that's there is more food
yeah.
in France than that, but we're looking forward to the pastries.
Yes. Well, that's exciting. That's a lot of fun, and you had just come back from a trip from Hawaii, so this is like you're just really tripping out, man.
No, we're like a whirlwind tour. Well, the Hawaii trip was our 2020 trip that had been
Right,
delayed because of the pandemic. So
right.
it seems like we're just going on vacations hither and yon, but in fact,
Yeah,
we were catching up on that vacation, and this is the 2022 vacation.
right, right. Oh, that my wife wants to do something fun. She said, "Now that you can see, we should plan some big trip and something to do. What do you wanna go see?" I said, I don't know. I'd really like to go see Yosemite. That's fun.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, we took our kids there a long time ago, and they didn't really care for it that much. We were just
right.
kinda spend a day there. I'd like to go in and stay at the lodge there for, like, a week, get a lot of the area and take some pictures and stuff. It's kinda crowded in the busy season. That's the only.
It does. It does. You got to be pay attention when you go. We went when I was younger. I think I've been twice, and both cases it's been camping when we're there.
Right,
So
right. Well, that's one way you can camp, or there's not a lot of places to stay there, so you have to,
right,
kinda be prepared with that. Well, excellent. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I mentioned that my daughter was in Brazil. She just went last week. Flew on Friday to Saturday, got to San Paulo Saturday late, spent Sunday and Monday in San Paulo, and now she's at a preserve where she's gonna be doing research down there for a month on
mhm.
trees and stuff. So,
Well, it's fascinating because there's all
yeah,
sorts of vegetation down
yeah,
there that we just
right,
absolutely don't have up here. So that'd be amazing, right? That'd be okay. Whatever your specialty is, here's a whole part of the
mm,
world where that specialty is has so many different examples. I don't know.
right.
I feel like that'd be really exciting.
Well, it's she had to do an internship for her master's, and she said, "Well, I wanna go do this, and will you count as internship?" "Okay." And, the funny thing is right before she left, she officially got accepted into the PhD program there as well, and her PhD advisor said, "Wow, I wish I could go on something like that. That's really cool." So
Oh, and I
so
thought because I heard about both at the same time, I thought that
yeah.
this trip to Brazil was part of the PhD.
Nope.
No, this is something independent.
She set it up on her own to go do. It's a volunteer trip, basically. She pays her way down there, and they put her up, and she does volunteer research. They bring in folks from all over the world, and they do various research projects. And later on, if she wants to come back as part of a sponsored research project by her school or her advisor, she could do that as well if she wants. But this is
Oh,
something she just wanted to do. You know?
that's really impressive initiative.
Yeah, the funny thing is, so she speaks Spanish, but not Portuguese, which is what they
Okay.
speak down in Brazil. And so she'd been spending a long time, like the last month, figuring out the differences, what words were in
hmm
Portuguese versus Spanish, how you say different combinations are different. And then when she got down there, she said, "Man, people are speaking so fast." you know, they'll talk to me, and once they realize that I don't know what they're saying, they just kind of give up. Yeah, because she doesn't I mean, she doesn't look out of place, and a lot of folks don't speak English, which would be a nice,
Hmm.
third party language to but in the preserve she's at, everybody speaks English. So but just in town, like, there's a little town outside where she's at, and she said, there's, like, 2 grocery stores, and nobody speaks a lick of English there, so, some Spanish, so but mostly Portuguese.
Wow. Yeah, I've got a brother-in-law who is a professor of Portuguese studies, and
Mm,
he's spending a lot of time in Brazil. Spends a lot of time in Portugal. I mean, half the year he's taking his family to one or the other. And
nice.
I feel like he's got young kids. I assume that they've got a greater ability to get along, even if they don't have any mastery of the language. Just because you're
Right,
spending a couple months there, you kind of can't help but learn. All right, well, here's
right.
how I ask for what I want at the grocery store, and here's
Mhm.
how I ask for what I want at school, and things like that. So no,
Yeah,
no,
how's
it's
your French? How's your French? I was wondering.
what's that?
How's your French for your trip?
Oh, it's terrible. I know. I the I, when when Stephanie's family spent a lot of time in France. They've been to France several times. Um, her family are a lot of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who have served missions in
Right.
France. Her father served a mission in France. Um, Stephanie herself served her mission in Argentina, but she thought that might have been a mistake because she was at the training center with a different Stephanie Thompson, whose family kind of spoke Spanish, but she was going to France. And so
Oh.
Stephanie's like, "Wait a minute, we got." But anyway, but her French is substantially better than mine. I know the word fromage, and that's apparently the most important word I need to know among my wife's family when in France. So
Good, good. Yeah, I had a little bit of French in, middle school, and it I know real basic words, like, if I could read signs, it's about it.
okay.
Speaking, I think it well, I was thinking we would talk about something a little different today, different from I don't know. I don't know how it can be any more different than what we just talked about, but it's gonna be more different than than what we usually talk about. Um, so recently, Wizards of the Coast announced that they were bringing out Spelljammer for release in August of this year,
Hmm.
and I thought we could kinda talk about Spelljammer in Starfinder because when Jake Tondro left Paizo, I thought, "Man, I bet you they're bringing the Starfinder in there for doing, some D&D in space." And then sure enough, like 3 weeks later, they announced this, Spelljammer, but it turns out he didn't work on it, had nothing to do with it.
Right, it
But
was already done by the time he got
it was
there.
already
So,
done. But I still thought, "You know what? I wonder if the success of Starfinder is getting them to think that we need to do, some space stuff." I don't know.
well, I
But
mean that might be
go ahead.
so. If anything, the success of some sci-fi properties, especially some science
Mm.
fantasy sort of properties in the media, Guardians of the Galaxy has been very, very successful.
Yep.
And
Yep.
when I talk to younger people who are playing Starfinder, their inspiration isn't Star Trek and Star Wars like we had. Their
Mhm.
inspiration are things like Guardians of the Galaxy. So they expect sort of a lot of weird, sort of crazy things going on. That is to say, they more easily embrace the fantasy part of science fantasy
Right.
because they're not grounded in things like Star Trek, which is very hard science fiction, or
Right.
Star Wars, which is space opera but
Right.
otherwise doesn't have a lot of fantasy in it apart from the lore of the Jedi.
Right.
Um, and so what they're getting is a lot of sort of crazy abilities and colorful, flashy spells and stuff like that. So Starfinder gives them exactly what they want in that regard. And Spelljammer has always been that way. It's been a lot more
Mhm.
fantasy in its science fantasy than any kind of science.
Yeah, it looks again, from back in the day, I don't think I played much Spelljammer to be honest. But, kinda looking at they have a promo video and they're talking about the various products that they have coming out. It really looks like they've taken their 5e D&D and put a little bit of spin on it. It's in the astral plane, which I guess
Hmm.
is space for them, but it's still using, like, wooden ships and, you know, a lot of the same kinda stuff that they would typically use, in a Terran environment, but now it's just in space.
Yep. That's
So
the That absolutely is the same aesthetic that Spelljammer used to have. And what they're coming out with in August, as far as I can tell, it's a box set that
Right.
has a setting book, a monster book, an adventure, a map, and a DM screen with it. So it's actually kind of buy this one box, and you've got an entire campaign.
Hmm.
I think that's really smart. I know that from a production perspective, box sets tend to be really difficult and or expensive to do. You've got to be able to sell a lot of them to be able to make money on a box set. We can count on Wizards of the Coast to sell a lot of them. But the idea of being able to put everything you need in one box, you open it up, and this is how your friends are going to entertain yourselves for the next several months,
Hmm. Hmm.
is really appealing. I'm really looking forward to getting this. Um, and so they can tell the stories that they want to in their adventure, and it sounds like they're using a lot of the same aesthetic. Not only is it
Hmm.
sort of the wooden ships, it's sort of classical sort of fantasy pirates, just
Right.
in a different setting, complete with they've got the gunpowder loving hippopotamus people who
Right.
have their sort of British stiff upper lip society that they're exploring space with. I do wonder how some of the things that are in the old Spelljammer setting might not fit quite so well with modern sensibilities. One of the big enemies in the Spelljammer setting were a race of creatures called the Neogi. They're sort of evil eel people, eel
Mm.
spider people. But their primary role in Spelljammer is that they are slavers. They're going around taking slaves and making slaves
Right.
work their ships because they don't want to. They could pretty easily cut Neogi out. There's still plenty of other
Hmm.
villains they can use. Mind flayers in space is part of the trope of Spelljammer as well. But I am interested to see how some of that compares to the older Spelljammer. Now, I've got my experience with Spelljammer is solely as a player. I never ran any of it. I had some of the books only for interesting reading and to make my own characters, but
Hmm.
we were shifting through a lot of different campaign settings at the time.
Hmm.
And I wasn't ever running Spelljammer. I don't think I ever ran Ravenloft. I had other friends that were doing that I was playing, but anyway, I don't know all the settings very well. Birthright I ran, the one where you're sort of have the legacy of rulers and you're running entire kingdoms. That was kind of cool. But Spelljammer I only know from the player perspective, and I'm interested to see whether that player perspective is kind of the same, whether the feel from the player side is the same in this new box set they're coming out with in a few months.
Hmm. Well, it's kind of a smart move with the property, taking something that they had. I think it was second edition where Spelljammer first came out, and then basically updating it to fifth edition. And kind of makes me wonder. There's a whole lot of other things that I know came out around that time. It makes me wonder if maybe they'll do some of that as well. For me, I played Gamma World, Top Secret, uh, Star Frontiers. Was Star Frontiers a TSR property?
Star Frontiers is
Yeah,
absolutely TSR. Yeah.
yeah. And Boot Hill, right? So it seems to me they wanted to, they could take all of those and update them as well. Maybe this is a kind of a first foray. I don't know.
Mhm. Well, it's not even the first foray because they did so much with
Yeah.
Ravenloft already.
Oh yeah. Right. 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 Right.
And so I think that there's probably somewhere, certainly fans and maybe even Wizards themselves, has a whiteboard with a list of all of their
Yes.
old
Yes.
properties on it, and they're marking them off as they do them. They're
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
Ravenloft, check. We've got Spelljammer, check. And so they're looking to see what else is up there. They're like, all right, well, we've got
Yeah.
Dark Sun and Dragonlance, and
Hmm. Oh yeah. Dragonlance is one
all
for
the other
sure.
stuff. Yeah.
But the thing with Ravenloft is they brought out hardcovers with that, and they really they recruited a pretty big team to work on that. So
hmm
I don't know who was recruited for Spelljammer. I haven't heard any rumbling about that. Do you have any sense for that at
I
all?
don't. I'd have to
Yeah.
find out. I know that Strixhaven, their magic school,
Right.
um, Amanda Hammond really worked
Right.
hard on that, and that actually had. There wasn't ever an old style Strixhaven, so they're still coming up with new. I put new in quotes for new campaign setting types because I believe Strixhaven was part of the Magic the Gathering universe, and
Oh,
so they
maybe.
carried over some of the cards that were about in this magic school, and made it into a Dungeons and Dragons. Brilliant move. I think that it's a real good way to capture the very, very large set of Magic the Gathering players in order to
Right.
tell them, hey, maybe give fifth edition a try.
Now, kind of to bring this back to Starfinder or Paizo at least. Now, so this is an effort for basically D&D 5e to kind of move into a fantasy space. Now, for Starfinder, it's not super fantasy-ish. It's kind of fantasy light. We
Hmm.
had Galactic Magic, which brought a lot more magic in some fantasy stuff. What do you think about Paizo making a bigger push onto the fantasy side, or maybe even I know like Iron Gods was kind of a crossover, kind of a more modern
Hmm.
kind of setting for for Pathfinder. I wonder if maybe pushing that a bit to bridge that gap. So some people really like the super science part. I think there's probably a lot of folks that would really like uh, uh, fantasy heavy kind of futuristic environment too.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. And I feel like Starfinder as a game is very intelligently designed to be very big tent. There's a lot of different
Mm,
types of sci-fi that can fit under there, including science fantasy. Galactic Magic is the recent addition that lets you emphasize magic in your game. But you remember the Dawn of Flame adventure path is one of the ones that's
right.
just the most overtly magical about it. And
Mhm.
somebody asking me whether or not, oh, Dawn of Flame, that's one where you go into the sun. What about sort of the crushing pressure and the plasma
Yeah.
that's in the sun? I mean, realistically, it's a very
Yeah.
difficult place to adventure. Like, oh, realism is not one of the things Dawn of Flame is looking at. They are
Yes.
intentionally leaning on the very hand wavy, well, it's magic sort of
Right.
answer for that. So I feel like a Dawn of Flame, even though it's very specifically located in the sun, is a very fantasy themed Starfinder adventure path. They can do other fantasy themed stories, and I feel like that the Starfinder setting has plenty of room for those sorts of things.
Yeah. I don't know of anything that's been announced. Like the latest adventure path, I think, is the Drift Crashers
Hmm.
AP, which you've written the first book of. Is that right?
The third book
Oh,
of.
the third book of the third book of.
Right. And if I
Um,
can, one thing I'm excited to do this afternoon is when we go through the product pipeline, one of the very
yeah.
last things we do on the pipeline is the approvals pass. This is looking at the
Mm.
files that are going to go to the printer. And once they're gone, it is going to be printed that way, whether you like it or not. Um, and even though I have my own products that I am looking at for the final approvals pass, whenever I've got something I've written, I peek into the approvals file to get the very last minute look
Mm,
at it. And I'm going to get
mhm.
the very last minute peek into the third Drift Crashers adventure, Masters of Time and Space, that I wrote in order to see what that looks like. I haven't seen any of the art for it or anything, but I'm excited to sort of shirk my duties for 15 minutes or so while I'm poking around in the
Yeah.
approval copy of the adventure that I wrote.
Who developed that?
That was Jake Tondro.
Yeah. So
He had that
yeah.
mostly developed in its entirety before he left
Hmm.
to go over to Wizards. And some of
Hmm.
the follow up on that, as far as making sure that the pages are copy fit correctly, doing the approvals pass, has gone to Jason Keeley, the development manager of the Starfinder team.
Right. Right.
Um, and that's because the other folks on his team are working on all kinds of other exciting stuff. Um, the Drift Crashers adventure path, I might be tempted to say it's very fantasy in its feel,
Hmm.
because you go to hell and you meet a deity in her own domain, and you've got to worry about space pirates and things like. I mean, it's got, if anything, it might be the most spelljammery of all of the Starfinder APs, but because it's so anchored in the drift crisis, which is a very much a Starfinder
Right.
event, it just feels so, it really hits that sort of zany Starfinder feel. I think it's the kind of thing that people who like Guardians of the Galaxy will particularly like Drift Crashers, because it's so much of, and now you do this thing in this weird location, and then you're off to some other weird location before you can even get your feet underneath you, and so on, so on.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. I'm actually excited for the Drift Crisis book to finally. hit my downloads. I know that some folks are already getting it today, and I've been clicking on the Paizo website, which you tell me you are aware that it is not. Oh wait, it just came up. It was not working before. I was hoping that I would get my download of it today, so that maybe I can actually see if,
See
'cause,
what it is that you wrote for
yeah,
the Driftkreis book, right?
if anything got in there. So let's see. I'm not seeing it in my downloads. Okay. Oh wait.
Well,
Oh, I got it. I
you've
got
got
it.
it.
Oh man, I had it last week. That's what I get for not checking.
Well, I mean, apparently not. If there was some, the website kept you from getting at it.
Well, I've been busy with this whole eye thing, and then I actually had 3 deliverables. So 2 that were due before this thing came out, 1 that was due like right afterwards. It's like,
Hmm.
so yeah, the most between the 3 of them, that 2-week time, this is just milestones. That's 26,000 words,
That's a
final deliverables on
lot.
these.
Wait, your
Yeah.
milestone was 26. Your whole
No, no,
assignment
it's
is
only half of that. But
okay.
that's my biggest project, biggest handling at one time is 26,000. So, I
Wow.
know it's not a lot for.
No, that
Oh,
handling a 26,000 word project is certainly enough for anybody to be able to trust you with an entire adventure path.
oh, well,
For
this is across
Starfinder, that's
2
the size
projects.
of it.
Yeah,
But for Pathfinder,
yeah.
they're 35, 40,000 words. And that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
you're,
that's what I'm hoping. I told, the developer, "Yeah, I'll take on some extra words here because I'm I'm hoping to get into some bigger things down the road." So,
oh, neat.
but yeah, no, we'll have to talk about it next time because I haven't looked at it. I feel really bad because I was trying to get it this morning before this to see so
trying
that,
trying to
oh,
get it refreshed. Well,
yeah,
the thing that we can talk about, I know that's it. I mean, it's exciting, and I'm
yeah,
excited to know that so many people are talking about it. But
yes.
nobody is going to be able to talk about it from your perspective and my perspective of people who wrote stuff for it.
Mhm, mhm.
And I'm going to be very interested in paying attention. I have to look to even see what it is. But one of the sections that I really wanted to write but had already been assigned to you, I
Uh-oh.
will judge whether or not you did that successfully in the final
Oh,
product.
I'm wondering what it is. I have a sense. I think you told me before, so,
Hmm.
yeah, and I think I know what you worked on because it's, like, one of your favorite things to always work on, apparently. Um, alright, well, I'm gonna look at it. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I've been beaten out before. The otter people, the Berneri, in I think Alien
Yes,
Archive 3. I want to
yes.
say I really wanted to do the otter people, but Luis Loza got it, and he did a fantastic job.
Oh,
So
yeah, I think they're pretty cool. I think they are.
um,
Alright, well, the one big thing I'm looking at is see if it showed up.
is in your name in the credits.
Oh, I don't know. I guess I should check if it would be a big thing, right? Oh, yeah, I remember I got contacted by Joe. Um, so my ISO byline is John Godek the third, just
Hmm.
because I thought that would be really cool to have the third on there.
Hmm.
And then somebody didn't get it in on Drift Crisis.
Mm.
So yes, so that was kind of a bummer. All right, now I can't. So they have all these adventures, and one of these is one I worked on, but I don't remember what the title was.
That's not going to do you very much good to be able to go through it without remembering what the
Yeah.
title is.
Oh, I think this might be it here. Anyway, yes. So, um, yeah, so I'm excited about this. See what's going on with this thing. Oh boy. Excited. You know, what do you do with all your authored copies?
That's I give give them away as gifts a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I'm
We
starting to get those piling up.
Well, we ended up with because the things that Stephanie writes for, she gets contributor copies for as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so for something like the Mwangi Expanse, where I get a copy as a perk of being a Paizo employee is a copy of the products they produce. So I got my as an employee copy of the Mwangi Expanse. I got two contributor copies for having written for it, and Stephanie got two contributor copies for having written for it.
Mhm.
It's the same for the first volume of Quest for the Frozen Flame. We end up with just a lot, sometimes 5 copies in our house. So they make gifts to people, right? And I think
Mhm.
that the we can be very sometimes the gifts go pretty fast. Like I'm running a Strength of Thousands game, and it's easy
Right.
enough to hand out people, okay, here's your reference book for this game. This is yours. You keep it. Um, I did that for a game that I joined where I was playing Pathfinder Second Edition. And it was all about kind of shopping, and I asked the GM, like, "Oh, do you have a copy of the Lost Omens Grand Bazaar, which is really kind of it's the book about shopping uh, in Pathfinder Second Edition?" It's like, "No, I don't have that." And then he said something like, "I really wish that instead of just a bunch of stuff, it would be like broken up by the different shops and what the different shops would give you." I'm like, "Oh, that's exactly what this book. Here, take this. I've got 3 copies."
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Oh, okay. Well, I'm looking at stuff. I can't tell. Maybe this particular thing didn't make it in. I will look later offline.
Okay, and
Um,
then we can have a talk about it when we
yeah,
next
yeah,
meet for
next
something like
time.
this,
Just me.
maybe. Or
Yeah, I think I had 4 or 5 things. They were all
okay.
kind of. I had one bigger thing. The rest were kind of smaller things. I don't know. It's interesting. I've gotten a lot of contracts now. Paizo,
Mhm.
like 12 or 13. I mean,
Oh
Starfinder
wow.
and Pathfinder. Yeah, but none of them are huge. I mean, some of them are as small as 500 words, right? And then the biggest one by itself is 20,000 words, and most are between like 3 and 8,000. Seems like. Is that
One of
pretty typical, or?
it is one of the things that we track, and we don't have we don't have, frankly, a very stellar system for this, but we know what the problem is. And the problem is there are freelancers tend to come in 2 types. There's the kind of freelancers that will work on a lot of things but don't necessarily do a lot of words for a lot of things.
Hmm,
And there might be somebody who's written for a dozen different products, but they haven't done more than 2,000 words in any specific product. And then there's people who don't write much, but they write big chunks of stuff when they do.
right. Yeah, I've seen that a bunch.
um, and so those people might have only 3 or 4 products to their name, but if they're 20,000 words each, right, then
Right.
they're very robust. So how do you adequately judge a freelancer's experience, right? You can't
Hmm.
really just count products,
Right.
because that really sort of shuts out the second group of people. You can't count words because that cuts out the first group of people, because both of those types of freelancers are very skilled, and they're very skilled in their own way. They're both very skilled, just in different directions.
Hmm.
Either of them are the kind of people I would trust with a product of any size.
Hmm.
But how do you convey that, right? Other than the individual discussion, right? If I say, well, I worked with this person who's done back matter monsters in 14 different adventure paths, and a back matter article here and there, they're definitely really solid go-to people for whatever kind of project you want to do, a scenario, an AP, something like that. Apart from me being able to say that personally to recommend somebody, there's not a really good tracking system we have.
Right.
We're trying. We're trying to keep that as as sort of an internal goal that we have, to be better
Hmm.
about tracking this. A lot of
Hmm.
things to pay attention to, and I know there's a lot of them that we're continuing to iterate on and improve on. I just saw today a question that went out to a lot of the freelance. One of the broader things we're going to try to track, along with how to spell somebody's name, to put the
Yes.
3 at the end of John Godek the
Yeah.
third,
Yeah.
and things like that, is to track people's pronunciation of their name,
Yeah. Yeah. I saw
because
that.
we're doing a
Yeah.
lot more online, and we want to be able to
Yeah.
make sure that people's names are pronounced correctly.
Hmm.
And so, we're taking that kind of data and information, collecting that to make sure that we can appropriately reflect that in our freelancer pool, and make sure that our freelancers are people we know how to say their names. So it's a constant iteration of a lot of different things in order to make sure we've got kind of a very robust knowledge of the freelancers that we use. They're just so vital to everything that we do.
Now, do things wind down a little bit here for PaizoCon, because it seems like everybody's busy with PaizoCon?
Yeah, we've got it. The work tends to compress right before PaizoCon, and right before
Hmm.
PaizoCon very often is some of our very busiest times. of the year, right before PaizoCon, right before Gen Con, because on
Right.
top of people preparing for their own travel, the games they're going to run, we're trying to get sort of product done and out the door to the next step before PaizoCon. The last couple PaizoCons have been actually delightfully easy, kind of straightforward, because a lot of
Yeah.
us are attending PaizoCon from
Right.
home. This year has been a little more frantic.
Mhm.
Um, because some people are going to be there in person. What are we going to do? And I think I'm still not entirely clear how people who are in person are going to participate in panels that some of us are participating in virtually.
Mm.
So the tech team is doing an awful lot of work, and the ops team is doing an awful lot of work to sort of put all that together. Um, they've got some difficulty, I understand, and it was almost easier when they could say, all right, we assume everybody in the company is going, let's just get hotel rooms for everybody in the company. And
Right.
now they can't, because they don't know who's going there. After, you have to tell us, are you going to be there in
Mhm.
person, are you going to be there virtually, and for which days, because of when your panels are and so on. I'm going to be, for example, I've got two panels, one on Friday and one on Sunday, and I'm going to attend both of those virtually, but in the so do that from home, from this very room. But on Saturday, I'm going to be going to the convention. I'm going to be in person for part of it and virtual for part of it. I'm sort of a living example of hybrid attendance for a con.
Mhm.
Um, so I know, I think there's still, to the extent things get really busy and kind of quiet,
Right.
it's because we're all focusing on prep for the big conventions that we do.
Yeah. I guess the reason why I'm asking this is I figured everyone's really, really busy, and then they kind of get a little breather right afterwards. I'm going to have some deliverables. All my deliverables are due like within 2 weeks or so after the convention,
Hmm.
right? How soon after the convention will be people assigning stuff, or will that already be signed out?
No,
Or
it won't happen soon after, and this is
right,
this is something that I realized that I had to acknowledge about my peers when I first came to Paizo. I would go to PaizoCon, Gen Con, very energizing, right? I would come
right,
home
right,
from the
right.
convention and be like, now I'm going to do a ton of stuff and I'm going to write
Yeah,
so much more and I'm so excited, because as a real outgoing extroverted person, conventions really kind of charge me up. Not everybody's that way. We've got some people that are very introverted at Paizo, and things like their, and I've come to find out that extroverted creative person, it kind of puts me in the minority. That more
mm,
of the creatives that I know are introverts. They find these conventions to be kind of draining, and many of them will take a day or two afterward off just to recuperate.
right.
I mean, maybe because they got sick. We get sick at conventions is with the con crud is distressing frequency. Haven't missed that. But they need just some time in order to recharge, reassess, kind of build back up to, all right, now let me look at my workload. What do I need? Oh, this is what I'm going to need freelancers for, so on. So I wouldn't expect anything like a wave of assignments to come out the day after or even within
Oh,
the week after PaizoCon. So
right, right. I was gonna
I think you
say,
could wait.
yeah. So if I waited a couple weeks, like maybe around end of June, early July, and said, "Hey, I'm available," might might that be good timing?
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
just
think that
wondering.
I don't think it's bad timing for sure.
Okay,
Whether or not it's good timing is can depend a lot on the personal schedules of the people that you're reaching out to, but it's certainly not bad timing.
yeah. I think in the past I haven't got anything over summer. It's always comes like after Gen Con is when I've gotten assignments for the fall, and I don't know if I didn't know if the stuff was being assigned actually between PaizoCon and Gen Con. So
Yeah, I don't. We certainly don't put a hiatus on
yeah,
assigning. It's going on. People who have a position like I do, where I'm doing the adventure paths and I'm only assigning
right,
sometimes, 3 to 6 a year, is uh is the minority. Most people have sort of an ongoing
right.
need for assignments and the like.
Well, I'll have to figure on that. Hopefully, I get through all this now that I can see. Makes it a whole lot easier to look at the computer and look at documents, um, and type words. I let my developer know I was having some issues, and they said, "Don't worry about it. I don't worry about the deadline. I still got my milestones in on time. It's just kind of anal about that, wanting to do that kind of. But I was very appreciative of their understanding to not.
Yeah, and I'm overdue for an assignment that I have, and I was talking to my developer, the person I'm writing it for, And I told him I'm running late on this. It's past the turnover date even. I said I am going to be able to finish it up before PaizoCon. And his response is, "Well, I'm doing a lot of prep for PaizoCon, so I want it before PaizoCon. But if it doesn't come in until the day or two before PaizoCon, that's probably going to be fine." And so I
Mm.
really appreciated that flexibility. I think part of it is not just being late and going radio silent. There's a real
Right.
I've
Right.
noticed a lot of people, they just kind of go radio silent when they're worried about being late, when what we'd much rather have is just tell us when it's coming and then we can adjust around that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think communication, I mean, that's in life and other things, letting people
yeah,
know what's
exactly.
going on. People tend to appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, we've hit a lot of different stuff here today. I
That's
think
typical of us.
I know I was going to say, we were very topical for a while, and this has kind of got back to how we got started in the first place, which is kind of an easy flow to fall into.
Right, way back in episodes 25 through 30,
Yes,
right in the
yes.
you know.
Well, I'm John.
And I'm Ron, and this is Digital Divination.